Today's review is sponsored by Ranga, or as we like to call him, Rangaroo. Everybody loves a redhead, and he's one of my favorites.
Watch it, Alan. I'm shooting.
Brain damage. Hello everybody, as you can see I'm not in my usual location. That's because I am dog sitting Ranga for this week, and he's a very good boy. Usual disclaimer, I apologize if the lighting is off or if the audio is a bit wonky. This is the only place in the house that was good for filming. Yeah, I'm away from my house obviously, dog sitting Ranga, and I still wanted to get a video out to you all, so hey, here we go. Frank Henenlotter is one of my favorite directors, not just in the horror genre, but one of my favorite directors in general. I think his movies are a good inspiration for low to micro budget filmmakers. His movie Basket Case, which I love, earned a huge cult following, and it shows what filmmakers can do with a small budget. When you watch a Frank Henenlotter movie, you know you're watching a Frank Henenlotter movie. They have such a unique feel to them, this fun, cheesy, over-the-top nature. And they are pretty imaginative, especially given their small budgets. I could probably do a whole video on Frank Henenlotter alone. Let me know if you'd like to see that in the future, but let's get into the movie.
Oh, that was wonderful.
Brain Damage was Frank Henenlotter's second feature film after Basket Case. Now, Basket Case had a budget of about $35,000, and Brain Damage had a budget around $900,000, which is not a huge budget, but for an independent, low-budget filmmaker, going from a $35,000 budget to a $900,000 budget is a dream. The movie follows a young man named Brian. He seems like a nice guy, living with his brother. He has a girlfriend named Barbara. He seems to have just this average, simple, happy life. Until one day he comes across this strange parasite. Now, this parasite has the ability to inject this liquid into Brian's brain. Try saying that 5 times. This liquid, or juice as it's called in the movie, is like the world's greatest drug. It creates this intense state of euphoria. Brian becomes addicted to this juice, and it starts taking over his life. The problem is, this parasite feeds on human brains, so in order for Brian to get his fix, he has to take this parasite out every night to find human victims. And there's one more thing. The parasite's name is Elmer.
Hi.
I love Brain Damage. I do have Frankenhooker and Basket Case a little bit above this one, but this is still a fun, cheesy, sleazy exploitation horror film. Frank Henenlotter's movies, especially his earlier works, have this low-budget, schlocky nature to them due to the lack of money. But he's always able to make them work with this over-the-top nature and their self-aware cheesiness. These are not movies that are trying to be bad. They're good. They're just aware of the cheese.
What the hell is that?
There's a hint of cartooniness to the creature. Elmer looks like the combination between a parasite, a turd, and a dildo. He has this perfect, somewhat pleasant voice.
What are you?
I am you, Brian. I'm all you'll ever need.
I don't understand.
You will, Brian. From now on, your life will take on a whole new light.
Which, in a way, makes the movie both fun and more unsettling. Brian is so addicted to this juice, and this silly character is able to get complete control over his life. The pleasant nature of this creature helps us believe that he's able to manipulate Brian into trying his juice.
I'll do all your thinking for you. Just put me on the back of your neck, and everything will be fine.
My neck? Oh, you mean the hole? Wait, but I don't know.
Trust me, Brian. Trust me.
Oh, and I have to mention real quickly before we dive deeper into the movie, there's a cameo in this flick that we Henenlotter fans love. Brain Damage is a fun movie. Entertainment was the first priority for this flick. But this is a movie about addiction, and I think it's one of the best movies about addiction. I know that's weird to say given the fact that this is a movie about a talking dildo that eats human brains, but I'm being serious here. I say this without an ounce of irony. I would put Brain Damage up there with movies like Requiem for a Dream.
What are you doing?
I don't feel so good.
Calm down, Brian.
I gotta go.
Go! You can't just... Brian, wait!
Yes, this is a low-budget movie that is a bit rough around the edges. Yes, this movie does have goofy, over-the-top acting. But the way this movie explores addiction is exceptional. Elmer is like the physical manifestation of addiction. Once Brian tries his juice for the first time, Elmer is able to manipulate him into using it again. He's able to coax Brian into taking another hit, and it eventually gets to the point where Brian is willing to do anything to get that fix. Now, at first, Brian is unaware that Elmer is killing people because he's under the influence, but once he learns that Elmer is eating human brains, Brian does everything he can to not go through with it and to stop using the juice. But it eventually gets to the point where it gets so bad for him that he gives in to Elmer's demands.
Hi, hello, Brian. How are you? How you doing?
Help me. Please help me.
Hey, of course I'll help you, Brian. You and I are pals.
Rick Hearst plays Brian, and his performance is equally tragic and funny. We can tell that this character is a good guy that went down a bad path, and his downfall into addiction is handled very well, in a movie with a talking dildo parasite thing. The movie captures what many people who have dealt with addiction have gone through. At first, Brian's having a blast. He's enjoying his trips, allowing this juice to take him for this mental ride. It gets to the point where he cares more about this juice than the people around him, and as he's diving further and further into his addiction, it then gets to the point where he's become so dependent on the juice that he's no longer taking it to feel good, he's taking it not to feel bad, which is something that a lot of addicts and former addicts have gone through. At first, the drug feels good, but as the body becomes more and more dependent on the drug, it gets to the point where they are no longer taking the drug to feel good. They're taking it so that they stop hurting and that they can feel somewhat normal.
Why don't we go out tonight and get us some girls? Yeah, that's a swell idea. Let's go up to 33rd Street and get us some hookers. Get ourselves a car and pile them in.
Here are the two scenes that stood out to me, and these might be mild spoilers, but they're not really spoiling that much. I just needed to talk about them, though. Brain Damage has a lot of fun, bloody, over-the-top moments, but these are the two scenes that stood out to me the most. The first one is when Brian locks himself and Elmer away in this beat-up apartment. Now, Brian has learned that Elmer is eating human brains, and because he doesn't want to kill anybody, he locks himself and Elmer up in this old rundown apartment building, because he wants to try to get control of his addiction. And we watch Brian go through withdrawals.
Give it a few more hours, Brian. But whenever you want the pain to stop, I'll be here. Whenever you want to stop hurting, you come to me.
What makes it so fascinating is that Elmer is there taunting Brian. And since Elmer represents addiction, it's like watching the drug trying to push the addict into using him again. It's an interesting visual representation of addiction.
You know the pain is going to get so great that only my juice will stop it. Only my juice will help you. You know that, don't you, Brian? Deep down inside, you know that.
The second scene happens shortly after that one. Brian has finally come home. He's been missing for a while now. He goes into his bedroom and he lies down. Shortly after that, his brother Mike and his girlfriend Barbara enter the apartment. They've been looking for him all this time. They're worried. Brian has basically neglected everybody in his life for Elmer's juice. He essentially ran away from his girlfriend, so the two of them have been comforting each other through this whole thing as they look for Brian. And the two of them end up having sex with each other. Now, they don't know that Brian is home. Hell, he's been missing all this time. So, Brian is lying in his bedroom, listening to his brother and his girlfriend have sex. But he doesn't do anything. He's just lying there, listening to what's happening next door. And then he takes out Elmer, puts him on the back of his neck, and gets hocked up on Elmer's juice.
Shh. Yoo-hoo, Brian.
It's a very sad scene. You can tell that he's not happy about this situation, but he's accepted the situation. He's accepted the fact that he has succumbed to this drug yet again. And it's like he's surrendering to his addiction. Like he understands that this is his life now. I know that this sounds like a depressing movie, but it's actually very entertaining. Brain Damage focuses mostly on being fun. It is dealing with dark subject matter, and I think it deals with the subject of addiction great. Brain Damage shows that when it comes to making movies, you can deal with dark subject matter while being entertaining, and still show the seriousness of that subject matter. And with that, let's get to the Grindhouse rankings. We've got a body count of 6. The kills are mostly Elmer eating brains in various ways. There are some pretty crazy moments in this flick, but I do not want to spoil them. It's best you watch them for yourself. There is some nudity here with a few shots of man-ass and a glimpse at some tits. This is a fun movie. Frank Henenlotter is always able to make entertaining, sleazy movies. I like Elmer as a villain. He's a goofy monster, but there is a sinister edge to him given the fact that he represents addiction. Speaking of which, this is a good movie about addiction. For me, it's one of the best. The effects work is a little on the rough side, but it's still very well done. It has that low-budget charm to it. Brian is an interesting character. We sympathize with him because he is falling victim to addiction. The movie has a good, goofy nature, but it does a good job at handling heavy subject matter. And there's a good final image that I think is the perfect way to end a wacky movie like this. I'm giving this a 4.5 out of 5. Another fun, sleazy Henenlotter flick. There's a reason why he's one of my favorite directors. As always, I want to thank all of you for continuing to watch and support this channel. Please leave a comment down below. Let me know some of your favorite movies about addiction. This is the Maniac and Ranga here to remind you that the Grindhouse will never die. He's a good boy.